First of all, this is connected to everything else that Donald Trump is doing. And what he is doing is he is trying to consolidate as much power in his hands as possible. And then he likes using it, basically to try to bend everyone around him to his will. I mean, I think this is the same as what he's doing with ICE, same as what he's doing with cutting off, spending or cutting off appropriations bills on healthcare, childcare programs in states he doesn't like. I mean, the list is literally endless of the ways he has violated the law and the Constitution, all about consolidating power in his hands and weakening any other possible institution that could challenge him, like Congress, for instance, but also the media and law firms and a whole bunch of other things. So, in the history of our country, we have never gone to war with this little discussion of it. We've certainly made mistakes in that regard before. Trump did not even try to make his case to the American people or Congress. He just did it basically unilaterally. And the process is a huge problem, but the policy itself is the bigger problem and what's going on in Iran right now. So that's one way to think about it. And then I do want to give you some insights on the military objectives here, because this is something, as a senior member of the Armed Services Committee, we've been talking about this for 15 years. And certainly Iran presents challenges to the region. There's no doubt about that. They support various different insurgencies. They've undermined governments in Syria and Lebanon and Iraq and Yemen and elsewhere. Their basic pledge is death to Israel, death to America. So they are a problem. But the idea that military action was ever going to make that problem better is the one that I've rejected. Because Iran is also 90 million people, a very dug-in regime, and there were not viable military solutions to that. On the nuclear program, on the ballistic missile program, on all of that. So you ask the question, why? Well, what is Trump trying to do here? He doesn't know for sure, but in general, he is trying to weaken Iran. That's the upfront goal: weaken their ballistic missile program, weaken their drone program. The nuclear thing is a whole separate, very confusing conversation. They've not yet struck any of the nuclear facilities, so that doesn't seem to be part of it, despite what you've heard the president say from time to time. And then they also want to weaken their industrial capacity to build it back. And that's what they're doing right now. Now, Trump has also presented this as a desire to change the regime. And that's a bit of a moving target. Sometimes he talks about, getting rid of the regime entirely. This is something that I know there are a number of Iranian Americans in our district, in my district, who are in favor of that and have been lobbying me for years to support this type of military action. But what they envisioned was a complete replacement of the regime. A lot of them are running around trying to get support for the Shah's son to come into power, which is an interesting little sub-argument. But there's a lot of other groups that just want a better government in Iran, one that doesn't, kill tens of thousands of their citizens and repress them. But Trump seems to be more focused on trying to use our military power to bend Iran to his will. Whoever winds up in charge, his vision is that they will simply acquiesce to his demands because he has sufficiently pummeled them. And I can tell you from all the intel that I've seen, none of those outcomes are going to happen as a result of this military action. You may be able to weaken Iran somewhat, but their ability to build back will not be that hard. The regime is solidly in place, unlikely to either be removed and changed or to change its overall outlook. And this war is having a devastating impact. We've obviously already had 7 U.S. service members killed. Countless civilians have been killed. There's been the bombing of the girls' school in Iran, which I have very little doubt was an errant missile from us. And then you have the devastation to the region and the global economy. All of this, by the way, was completely predicted. That's why a number of military leaders for years said, don't do this. It's not a good idea. But here we are. And then the big question, and if you watch the news today, you got radically different answers from Donald Trump within minutes of each other. One was, I think we're going to be wrapping it up pretty quick. We've accomplished our objectives, whatever those objectives may be. And then he went back to saying, no, this is going to go on for a long time. I don't think he knows. The biggest thing that I'm advocating for right now is stop the war as soon as possible. It's not accomplishing the military objectives, and it's having the devastating impact that I just described. So we need to stop that. The final thing I want to say about Iran, and then we'll touch quickly on a couple of other issues, is, there was a resolution last week also calling Iran out as a state sponsor of terror and a number of other things. And the thing is, everything in that resolution was basically true. Iran is a bad actor in those ways. But what I really want people to understand is we got to get off of this idea that if you can identify a country or a leader as having done something bad, then war is automatically justified. We should have learned from the last 25 or 30 years that's not a good answer. It makes the problem worse and it doesn't solve the problems that are in front of you. So you can say, Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, the Taliban, the whole bunch of people out there that are far from ideal. But what I thought we had learned was that the military is not the solution to that. And Donald Trump claimed to have learned that lesson during the campaign. And you can see the video. He very specifically says, elect me and we will not go to war with Iran. And here we are. So I hope people recognize that as well. Other issues that are still important, ICE reform. For all of the attention on what's going on in Iran, we still have an out of control immigration enforcement regime daily violating the rights of Americans all across this country. Reforming that continues to be a top priority as we battle over the Department of Homeland Security appropriations bill. And then finally, politically, there is some good news. The opposition to Trump definitely seems to be growing. There's a number of different statistics on that. But for the first time since 2002, in a Texas primary, more people voted in the Democratic primary than in the Republican primary. So there's now, believe me, I know there's miles and miles to go. And every day, Trump is doing things that are devastating across the board. But the organization and the structure seems to be making a difference. So I'll just close by saying thank you. I know there are people on this call and all across the country who have participated in one way or another in that effort to build up the resistance. My campaign is specifically doing phone banking for swing congressional districts out there. A number of people have participated in that. And I know all of you have participated in campaigns in a variety of different ways. That is really important to drive the message. And there's another No Kings rally coming up, I think, in 2.5 weeks, something like that. Those have been incredibly successful. Millions of people all across the country in thousands of different cities standing up and expressing their opposition to what Trump is doing in this country. It's a good start. We got a lot of work to do. We have to build on that going forward. With that, I'll turn it back over to Mary and take whatever questions you have.
Thank you very much, Representative Smith. All right, I am going to take the first question. And again, folks, the way it's going to work now is if you have a question, if you're a member in a PCO, you may put it in the chat and I'll read off and we'll do as many as we can. The rest will be directed to Chirag after the meeting. Okay, here we go. This question comes from Aram Falsafi. As the only Iranian in the group with family on the receiving end of the Israeli-U.S. bombs, I would like to request that I ask the first question, if that is okay with the board. Here is what I would like to ask. My name is Aram Falsafi, and I am from Iran with family that I have not had much news from since the Israel-U.S. attack started, other than an update that my cousin's house was damaged in Shiraz. A few months ago, at the height of the Gaza genocide, we asked you about cutting off or limiting military aid to Israel. At the time, you said that Israel needs U.S. military assistance to defend against aggression from Iran. Since then, Iran has used these very weapons to initiate not one, but two illegal wars of aggression against Iran, dragging the U.S. along, as Marco Rubio admitted recently. In light of that, would you care to amend your previous answer?
Yeah. First of all, that's another aspect of this. And Trump's gone back and forth on this as well as to whether or not Rubio has said, well, Israel was going to attack, so we joined them. Trump has said, no, I pushed them to attack. I don't really know which is true. I do know that there's no way on earth the U.S. should have gotten involved in a war because Israel was going to get involved in a war. Completely agree with that. Israel is in a slightly different situation. Again, Iran is not a perfect actor. Iran from 1979, from the moment they were formed, put as their top plank in their goals the destruction of Israel. They have supported Hezbollah, they've supported Hamas, they've supported the Houthis, they've supported a whole host of terrorist organizations that have had that goal. Israel's need to defend themselves against Iran, I think, is real. But I don't think that launching a direct war is the answer to that. So no, I'm not prepared to completely cut off Israel. I'm certainly prepared to put pressure on them to place some restrictions on that. We've been talking about that. But I do understand the threat. That's why, as I said in the opening remarks, the problem is thinking that the only way to deal with a threat is to attack. And the other thing, and I've put a lot of pressure on Israel on this, I'm one of the lead co-sponsors of the West Bank Violence Prevention Act. And if Israel's going to get peace, they also have to help rebuild in Lebanon, in Syria, in Gaza, in the West Bank. Give people a reasonable alternative. Just going in and breaking things and defending yourself in that way is not a pathway to peace. And I'm happy to continue to push that. But again, Israel does face threats. I'm just not thrilled with the way they're responding to them right at the moment.
All right. I'm realizing with this format, there may be a chance that some of these questions overlap, so you can answer them as much or as little as you see fit. Omani, this is from Bob Rosenberger. Omani officials report that Iran had agreed to most U.S. demands, making the war completely unnecessary. Is that your reading as well?
Yeah. No, look, again, I'll go back to what I said at the start here. And there's a whole lot of geopolitics that goes into this, and there's a whole lot of East stuff that goes into this, and a history with Iran, and a lot of different decisions to be made. But at the end of the day, Trump wanted this war. Trump wants to use power. He's discovered that as president, he has an immense amount of power, and he likes using it and abusing it, preferably in an unchecked manner. So yes, I think there were a number of different off ramps that could have prevented this war that Trump chose not to take. It's the same reason that he did what he's doing in Venezuela. The bombing campaign against supposed drug boats in Latin America continues, even as this is going on. So yeah, no, I think there was clearly a diplomatic option here that Trump simply chose not to take.
Thank you. This one's from Paul Nelson. Do you support a general strike to end the war, ICE abuses, Epstein files, etc.?
Yeah, I don't know. I certainly support mass protest movements. I think it's fine. I don't know exactly what a general strike would do. Part of the thing is I want to make sure that we don't weaken the very institutions that Trump is also trying to weaken. And so that the power becomes more consolidated in his hands. We have to show that we can function as a government in places like Washington State and elsewhere. But as I mentioned, the No Kings rally, different rallies, I think it's really appropriate to get out there and speak out publicly against this and rally in a variety of different ways. I'd have to see exactly what the general strike details were to know whether or not I would support that specific option.
Thank you. All right, this one's from Amy Hagopian. Given that Israel was a co-instigator of this terrible and ridiculous and illegal war in Iran, and given that AIPAC is your biggest campaign contributor, are you ready to start rejecting funds from this organization which supports the murder of civilians like schoolgirls in Iran?
Two things about that. One, Donald Trump is to blame for the U.S. involvement in the war. And I just don't think we should let him off the hook by saying Israel did it. I already gave the answer on Israel in general. The AIPAC thing is difficult because the way they count AIPAC contributions is anyone who has contributed to AIPAC. I have a lot of supporters in my district who have contributed to AIPAC and who contribute to me as well. No, I'm not going to cut them off and say that they shouldn't give me money because of that. I will oppose the Israeli policies that I oppose, and I will take the principled stance that I take.
All right, thank you. This one is from
Sorry,
Robert.
just one more thing on that.
Sorry.
The big concern about it is my bad, actually. You know, it's very clear that I am not controlled by my campaign contributions. I vote my conscience. And basically in a campaign, you want to contribute to me? If it's legal, fine. But I'm going to vote the way I'm supposed to vote. No one supports this war with Iran more aggressively than some in AIPAC. AIPAC is not monolithic, by the way. And I have been a consistent voice against it. I was against Midnight Hammer a year ago, before it happened, for weeks and months ahead of it. I'm a huge supporter of the JCPOA, which AIPAC hated. I will vote my conscience. I will vote my district. And if people decide they don't like that, they stop giving to me. And that's fine. It does not impact my decisions.
Yeah, thank you. This one's from Robert Stevens. I'm going to paraphrase very slightly. Is there data on how many whites have been arrested by ICE?
Oh gosh. If there is, I'm unaware of it. But look, there is no question that a huge part of what Trump is trying to do is to target people of color. You know, you've seen it. I mean, they've actually pushed and said they're going to do that. They're going to profile. Not even if they have any information on whether or not somebody is undocumented. They're going to profile and grab who they want to grab. I know there was one case of a woman from Ireland, I know, who came here as a child and became a citizen. And then, like 15 years ago, she wrote two bad checks. It was settled, whatever. They picked her up and put her in detention for 3 months, trying to deport her. So, yeah, I mean, but there's no question that the focus of Stephen Miller, and you've seen, I don't know if you've noticed it, but the rise in anti-Muslim rhetoric from elected members of Congress. We had a member of Congress this morning from Tennessee say that Muslims shouldn't be allowed in America. Yeah, there is no question that Trump is targeting people of color.
Okay, thank you. This next one is from Joel Savashinsky. If the Democrats regain the House and you become chair of the Armed Services Committee, what would your priorities be, and what would you do differently from your previous term as chair of the committee?
Well, the biggest thing that's different is oversight. I mean, the Department of Defense is violating the law and doing all kinds of things that are just bad for the country. So, more aggressively exercising oversight of Secretary Hegseth than what DOD is doing. And there's a laundry list of issues around that. One of the biggest ones is the way they're waging war without any effort to protect civilians. You hear Secretary Hegseth talking about no rules of engagement, do whatever you want to do. The corruption that exists, the contracts that Trump is steering towards people who he is friendly with. Yeah, biggest change is going to be oversight, trying to rein in what the Pentagon is doing. The other thing that I think I would pay more attention to this time is trying to get the Department of Defense to actually finally pass an audit. So oversight and accountability would be a central focus if we get to that happy place.
Okay, do you have time for one more?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is from Abby Hart. What can we do as constituents to support our congressional representatives in ending this war, knowing that it has not been advanced with appropriate input from Congress and the American people?
Yeah, I think you speak up. I think organized rallies, protests, I think that is really appropriate to draw attention to this and the impact it's having. And really, focus on getting Republican members to feel this heat as well. I mean, it's just it seems like there's nothing Trump can do that the Republicans won't just roll over for. I mean, the impact of this war is devastating in the Middle East, but it's devastating the U.S. as well. Speak up, organize. And I think to the degree to which we present a reasonable opposition or a well-organized opposition is a better way to put it, build a coalition that grows and expands. And I've talked about this before, and people have varying levels of hostility to this, but expand the coalition. Let's find people who maybe weren't with us. There's a lot of people who voted for Trump based on the fact that he said he wouldn't take us to war with Iran. Well, here we are. Let's reach out to those people. Let's find those people. Let's bring them in. And yes, with the inevitable follow-up question, I am not saying that we should ignore the people who didn't vote last time. Yeah, let's go get them too. But let's try to grow the coalition of people who want an alternative to Donald Trump. And I think there's a lot of folks who voted for him who, if we do it right, if we reach out to them in the right way, we can bring some of them across. And it doesn't take that many. It doesn't. We got to look for ways to grow this coalition if we're going to be able to build an alternative, win the midterms, and stop Trump. Stop him, hopefully, in the short term on what he's doing. But then, crucially, come 2028, we have to be strong enough as a coalition to go win that election. Because I don't think Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance is going to be any better. We got to be ready for that moment. And that's why I'm working, organizing across the country. Also, I've been living on TV and podcasts and radio shows, everything I can do to speak out against this war in a way that I think grows the base. I've been on Newsmax 3 or 4 times, News Nation. Only one of those interviews was terrible. Katie Pavlich, not really worth talking to because she's one of those people who just keeps talking at you, talking over you. Blah, 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 blah. There's no way to get a word in edgewise. But otherwise, I've had several good interviews on Newsmax and elsewhere, and I think that reaches people. Not going to reach them all, but let's focus on growing that coalition. so that we are as strong as we possibly can be this fall, and then for the 2 years that follow. Yeah,
All
I'm sorry.
right.
Someone said we need a message that's different than not Trump in 26, 28. And that's absolutely right. Okay. Now it's got to be part of it. Part of it is here's what Trump's doing you don't like, but we also have to have a positive message. And I'm worried if we get the majority back, if all we do is impeach as many people as possible, that's not going to be good enough. Okay. It's not. What are we going to do to improve the quality of education? What are we going to do to make healthcare more affordable, to make energy more affordable, to grow jobs? All right. So, yes, thank you for that comment. It's something that I should have said in the first place. Yeah, no, we have to have, it's wrong to say positive message. We have to have an agenda to address the issues that are concerning to American people. Because as bad as Trump is, it's not like we didn't have problems before he came along. So we have to address those as well. And I am very happy to work with all of you. I take all ideas. I've got some of my own, but I also am aware of the fact there's a lot I don't know and that I'm occasionally wrong about things. So we need a big group of people working together to try to figure out how to move in a positive direction. So I appreciate that. I got to go talk to a class here. But thank you for giving me the chance and thank you for your organizing work.